Welcome to the Shine Within podcast. This is your host, Gina Canadian. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Celeste Fernandez, and she is a life coach who specializes in insight guidance and grief recovery. She is devoted to breaking through social disruptions, opening the doors to more opportunities, and bringing inner peace to her clients. Thank you so much, Celeste, for coming on today. So nice to see you.
So great seeing you. Hi.
Nice. So, how are you doing today? How was your day?
It was a really busy day. I had quite a few meetings and I realized I needed to slow down quite a bit.
And to slow down a little bit. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally get it, especially in this world that we live in right now. Everything's like so chaotic and we're just like all fast paced and we just cannot like stop for a moment to breathe, right?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
yeah, I'm so excited that you're here because I really wanted to discover you and what you do because I think we all need coaches in our lives. Some people go to therapists and it works, and some people are like, you know what, I do not want to see a therapist. It's just like a waste of time, and they don't really get along with the therapist, or they're just like feeling that they're not even listening or paying attention to them. And so it's important
Mhm.
for us to have like coaches as yourself and myself too, I guess, right? Yeah. To go ahead and help people with whatever struggles they're having. And what's nice is that they get to pick whoever they know, like, and trust. So I want to know a little bit about your background and why you decided to become a life coach.
Yeah, definitely. I come from a background of mixed uh, professional experiences. And so I'm gonna have to tell you this whole story. I come from a background of nursing, which was something I originally did not want to do. Um, I was just not passionate about it, and I realized, I want to continue helping people. I decided to work in a corporate office. Did not like the corporate politics, and I just realized I was starting in the downward spiral of losing myself. I worked in retail, I've worked in the casino, I've worked in hospitality, I've done sales, moved across the country for a job, and I realized that wasn't for me. I've worked in construction, and I realized, I needed to find something that I could find happiness and passion in. And, after 12 years, I finally said I needed to work with someone. And in my past, I've also worked with about three different therapists, but, therapists are great. They focus on your past and the whys, like the reasons behind your behavior, whereas a coach focuses on your future and the how to get to your goal. And that's what I wanted. So I worked with an amazing career coach. Shout out to my career coach, Rebecca. And within 7 months, I realized, I wanted to continue helping people and I love talking to people and guiding them to where they wanted to be in life. And that's where I am now. I'm a life coach.
That's so awesome. And it is such a reward when you see your clients actually just shining and succeeding in everything they do because of how you inspired them and coached them and mentored them. And it's so important. Now, do you find, now there's a specific niche, I should say, that you have as a grieving coach, right?
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell me what, I mean, let me just tell you first off and foremost, thank you for taking the time to actually sit down with these people who are grieving because a lot of people during this time are losing a lot of loved ones. And as myself, my uncles passed away, a whole bunch of my mom's side of the family passed away, and it was all like at once. And so we never even heard of like a grieving a coach before. I mean, I guess a grieving counselor, at school or something, but not like a coach. Can you tell me what inspired you to become or niche down to become a grieving coach as well?
Yeah, so I was actually attracted to the grief recovery method once I heard about the Grief Recovery Institute. And what was interesting was the way that they had explained what grief is. And yes, grief is the normal and natural reaction to loss. But what we forget is it's also the conflicting feelings caused at the end of or any change in a familiar pattern of behavior. So, grief can be felt when, yes, when you lose a person in your life, when you lose a pet, but it can be anything and anywhere between losing a job, starting a new job, moving locations, such as what I did, losing trust in a person. Those are all different forms of grief. And the way that we handle grief, I realize the way that we're taught is so unhealthy. We're usually taught, it takes time to heal. It's all going to be okay, or there's no need to cry. You're so strong. Those are ways that we were taught to grieve, and I realized it just wasn't healthy. Um, so when I went through the grief recovery method, I realized that one, I had an eating disorder. Two, I was disrupting my sleeping patterns. And three, I was dependent on substances that was helping me cope with grief. And I didn't need to go through all of that once I found peace.
Yes, we see that a lot of people tend to go towards substances like alcohol and drugs to numb their pain, and even their prescription medications if they're taking like any type of sleep aids or anything like that. If anyone abuses that, then it's going to be problematic, and they're just going to be dependent on that just to go ahead and numb themselves from the pain they're feeling. And you're absolutely right about people saying, "Oh, it's okay, you're strong, you don't need to cry." I think it's very important that we actually take the time to grieve and cry, whether if it's a loss of somebody or if we're changing jobs or if a boyfriend or broke up with us or those are all grieving
Yeah.
processes and like pets as well. And so it's a beautiful thing that you do helping these people. Now, what would you suggest would be the best form of relief, I should say, when one person grieves on their own? How, I know it probably varies amongst everybody, but what is something that you would say or suggest to your clients how to grieve?
So first, like one of the biggest things I always suggest is first putting words to your emotions. Grief is such a complicated emotion because it's not just one emotion; it's a layer of multiple emotions. So while you're grieving, one, you might feel relief because something has finally happened that you've been expecting to happen, and you might also feel anger because you might not have expressed um, all the communication you wanted to let out. And you might also feel betrayal because you felt like you could have done something more and you weren't given the opportunity to. And these are just examples. So one, I usually say, give words to what you're feeling, and then two, when you're ready, um, give action. Or you can't really make any changes without action. It's the same in any type of coaching. Um, yeah, I would
Yeah, it
definitely
is the
do those.
same as any type of coaching. Yeah, you gotta do action work too. Yes, but putting the words there, and then expressing them, and it's okay to cry. Like, I noticed for myself, I blocked so much emotion whenever I was in pain. I would just be like, no, I'm not hurting. Like, I felt like I needed to be like the strong person, quote unquote, and just be like, oh, I'm not hurting, I'm fine. But then eventually you just break down and you lose it, right? Is that common?
Yes, it is. It is very common, and usually what I've noticed is when people do grieve, and they're not doing it in a healthy way, they tend to throw themselves into their work. So they become quote unquote workaholics, or they throw their selves into their food, whether they start eating more, or in my case, they stop eating. Um, or, for example, they replace that loss. So, for example, it's very common for when a child loses a pet, their parents replaces that loss with another pet. And those are just not very healthy ways of dealing with grief.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. We tend to replace it with something else. And I want to talk a little bit about what happened to you when you felt like you were in a grieving process. You said you had stopped eating.
Yes.
Can you share with that? 'Cause I know I would probably be eating. For me, I don't know. Maybe it's an emotional eating. Everybody's different, of course. But yeah, can you share a little bit about that as well as like what you also mentioned before that you were taking things to also numb your pain. Can you just tell the audience a little bit about what you experienced, and how you were to overcome that?
Yeah, definitely. So it was really interesting. I was actually diagnosed with an with anorexia nervosa, sorry. And I realized I thought I was only eating during the times I was hungry. So that meant I was only eating once every 3 to 5 days, one meal every 3 to 5 days. And I thought that was just normal. And I realized I was limiting my eating habits because I felt like my life was completely out of control, and the only thing that I felt like I could control was my eating habits and when I was eating. So for over 2 decades, I yes, I had an eating disorder, and I thought, well, I am during a time in my life, I looked at myself and I said, well, I'm in my mid 20s. I am not reaching 100 pounds. I don't know if I have cancer. I don't know if there's something physically wrong with me. So I would go to a doctor and they said, well, one, you're definitely underweight. Two, I can see that you are clinically depressed. Three, you also have anxiety disorder. And four, I noticed that you're definitely not sleeping. So I'm going to prescribe you medical marijuana. So for quite a while, I was very dependent on medical marijuana. It was the only thing that could get me to eat, only thing that could get me to sleep. It would numb all the anxiety that I had, numb all the depressive emotions that I had, but it wasn't fixing the problem. And it wasn't until maybe a little over a decade later, when I finally went through the action work myself, that I realized, man, I was just completely unhealthy. And it wasn't just it wasn't just all of these things. It wasn't just depression. It wasn't just my anorexia nervosa. It wasn't just my lack of sleeping. It was my grief that was causing everything. It was my it was because I wasn't letting go of the things that uh, I was holding inside, that I could finally say, okay, fine, I can actually eat. I can finally stop smoking. I can finally stop relying on different medications. I can finally, live a normal life.
Wow, yes, thank you so much for sharing that. That shows a lot of vulnerability. So thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to be put on. Like, here you have then, anorexia, then you have anxiety, depression, and then they prescribe you American marijuana, which, oh, this is the cure. And I'm noticing a lot of these doctors are just prescribing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my chiropractor as well. This is probably a little bit of side note here. Because I was like, so telling my chiropractor, you know what, I appreciate you because you actually don't prescribe me any medication for my back pain. You actually the job done by doing adjustments, stretching, massage, all that. And it's so sad that the world that we live in, it's like we're constantly giving like type of, here's a pill for this, here's another pill for that. It's like I don't want to take pills and I don't want to be on marijuana. I don't want anything. I feel like it's such a big problem in our world, right? It's so sad.
It is. It is. It is. And what's interesting too is, um, as a grief recovery method specialist, we actually work with a lot of doctors because For example, if we were to work with a chiropractor, it's so easy because a lot of our grief, we carry it on our shoulders or on, like in our back. We feel all of that pain. When you go to your dentist, we also tend to like bear down our teeth. And as I mean, I don't know if you can see, but I kind of chipped my teeth because I was stressed. I was stressed, like, no, I don't know what do you call it, but I was just stressing out, and my teeth were getting affected. Um, and when you go to your nutritionist, it's the same thing. We're so reliant on what we put in our bodies through our food, but we don't realize that our stress that we keep within ourselves is also affecting our nutrition. So grief is pretty big in our
Yeah,
lives.
I'd say like I think if I now it makes me think. I look at grief differently. Maybe I was grieving for something throughout my whole drinking period. Maybe I was grieving over something, and I was trying to I'm trying to think what I would be grieving about. Maybe grieving that my childhood was lost from like sexual abuse. Who knows? Like something was going on because I also am a teeth grinder. I do have a mouth guard, so I know what you mean by that. Like I said, I have a lot of tension in my shoulders and neck. Could be from multiple car accidents, my reckless lifestyle before, but there are different ways to cope, and this is where you come in. Can you share with the audience what is the process you take your clients through in order for them to first off admit that they are grieving, and then how to then overcome and feel better about what they have gone through and accept it?
Of course, yeah. So it's actually really interesting because first we have to understand um, that clients don't actually come to me unless they're ready to let go of their grief. I walk them through the process of understanding what grief truly is, and all the misconceptions behind grief. And then I walk them through understanding how to handle grief. And we have a step by step action process of first going through your timeline, your life's timeline of all your positive experiences and all your negative experiences, and we make that comparison of your negative experiences and how it's affecting how long it's been affecting your life. So, for example, for me, I was I was in a very rough relationship when I was younger, and that just stayed with me for 20 years, or over 20 years, and I didn't realize that that was the very first cause of my eating disorder. So I completely created this blind spot about it, and that's something I share with my clients. And we go through the steps of analyzing everything, putting words and actual emotions behind those situations, and we talk everything through, and we finally say our goodbyes to those pains in our lives before we find peace, inner peace.
Yes, I've heard of people like writing a letter and then either burning it or they would bury it in the ground as like a form of saying like goodbye, I'm done, I'm ready to move on to the next chapter in my life.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of
Yes.
anything like that? I've had some people tell me some funny things, and I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. I wish I would have done things like that. Little tricks and stuff.
Yes. Yeah, that is one of the things that we do. However, it's one of the final action pieces we do because there are so many other steps that we have to go through. But yes, actually writing out the letter, no matter how long it is, and reading it out loud, not to anyone outside of our circle of trust, um, but making sure that you have everything on paper, make sure that you have all of your emotions said, and finally saying goodbye to that. And, you know, as you said, so many people might burn their letters. There are other people who find other ways to you know let go of those letters themselves.
Wow. Yes. I need to share this information also to like my mom because she's been grieving a lot lately, and I don't know how to console her or like to comfort her. And a lot of times when people say, "Oh, I've lost a mom," I lost my father when I was a baby. So
Mhm.
I have no recollection, no memory of like him at all. I have photos, but there's no emotional connection. Now, for someone like me, it's very hard for me to. You can probably hear my cat meowing in the background. He's funny. His name is Ben. Anyway, it's very hard for me to comfort anyone who is grieving. What is something that you would tell me to do to comfort like my mom or like a friend that's lost like close someone close to them, because I've never lost anyone close, just one best friend, and that's it. Not like a parent, not, oh God forbid, not a child. Oh, I think that you, I don't know. I don't think I can manage losing a child, and so I don't know how to show empathy. What are some ways that people can show empathy when they've never really experienced grief for themselves?
So, that's actually really common, and it's first understanding that, one, we can never understand the situation that a griever is in, because of course we're all different-minded people. And two, we want to definitely reach out to their heart. What we do as outsiders is we usually um, try to provide comfort to the mind, which we usually say things along the lines of, oh, it's going to be okay, or oh, give yourself some time. Those are all mind comforting um, sentences or reactions to get. What we want to do is we want to let them know that, one, uh, they're not alone; two, that they are loved; and three, that we're there for them whenever they're ready to talk it all out. Um, Now, when it comes to, so for example, with your mom, or even for example with you, what I would say to you is, I can't imagine what you went through when you lost your best friend. Um, I just want you to know that you are so, so loved. And whenever you are ready to talk about it, whenever you are ready to embrace um, the love and any comfort that I can give you, I'm here.
I love that. Yes, it's like, I can't imagine what you're going through, but know that I'm here. You're loved, and whenever you are ready to talk about it, I have listening ears and nice
Yeah.
arms to give a hugs too, right? Everyone needs a
Yeah.
hug here and there. That's
Yes.
great. Yeah, because it's so hard when people say, "Oh, I've lost my mom," and or lost. I'm like, I sometimes I lose words. I'm like, I don't know what to say. But thank you so much for clarifying. Now I know exactly what to say. And it really does come from the heart because I really want to be genuine and I really want to let them know that, hey, if they are wanting to talk, I am here. I am here.
Yeah.
So I really love that. And I wrote that down too. That was really good. Yeah. So this is so good because like I told you before, a lot of people are losing loved ones. I don't know if it's the time, if especially probably after COVID, everyone who's gotten it who are maybe older or unfortunately they've passed, and I know so many people and everyone's coming to me like, oh yeah, I'm like, I don't know what to do. But yes, now I know what to do. Now with children, now you don't work with children, right?
I am not qualified to work with children, but I do educate any caregivers, parents, helping them work with their kids or their younger loved ones. Yeah.
That's great because I was thinking about children. I said, if they lose their mom at a young age or their parents, like I can only, I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine what they would must be going through. And I'll tell you a little story. That's what made me decide to not drink anymore is because I thought about my children. I was like, oh my goodness, I have a decision here to make. The doctor says if I keep on drinking like this, I'm going to die within 10 years. That means my kids who were very young at that time, my one was not even like 1.5 years old and the other one was like in fifth grade. It's like they won't have a mother anymore. And you only have one mother biologically, it's like
Yeah.
you only have one mother. And so it crushed my heart. And so I really had to make that decision because I couldn't imagine if when children lose their parents. That's just nuts. Yeah. Is there anything
Um,
else you'd like to share, as far as what else you do? I mean, I can't believe you're a construction worker. Can you share about that? I'm just kidding. I know when we first spoke, you were sharing that you were doing construction work. I said, did you wear a hard hat and everything and those orange vests?
um, it was it was actually really funny because I was working for an ex-boyfriend's okay, I was working for my boyfriend at the time's family, um, and they needed someone to work in their office, so I came on to work as an office manager, and it turned out they were lacking hands out on the field. So I would go out I would go out on the field, help them demolish their different structures, and then kind of help them install different structures. And it was very different. I didn't realize how difficult the industry is and how differently being a woman, how we're seen. Um, so it wasn't something that I would say was one of my best experiences, but it was definitely a humbling experience. Yeah.
That is so cool. I know you did everything, and then you're like, you know what? I'm just going to be a life coach. This is
Yeah.
my calling. I wanted to actually go back a little bit and ask you, what was your breaking point when you were experiencing the depression, the anxiety, and not eating? What was your breaking point where you said, you know what, I want to change?
Um, to be honest, my biggest breaking point was I was living with a previous partner, and his family is very, very extroverted. Like they are like the party family. And I used to be like that. And I found myself just finding myself just hiding in the bedroom all the time, every day, all the time, not wanting to eat, not wanting to, uh, not wanting to interact with them. And they're such a lovely family. And I realized there has to be something wrong with me. And okay, I have to say this. There is nothing wrong with us. It's just I was just going through a growth phase. And that's what we have to remind ourselves is we all go through growth phases. But of course, in that moment, I was just thinking, man, there is something wrong with me. Um, and it was because I was in such a low place in life. I I felt like I was spreading my depression to my partner, and I was not being a good person to be around. So we went our separate ways, and I realized if I want to find happiness, um, I can't find it in someone else. I have to find it within myself. And my biggest turning point was when I said, okay, I'm going to make a change, and to make that change, I'm going to commit myself to it. And I committed to it by getting a tattoo. And my tattoo is actually a quote on my arm that says "Rise in love," and it's because we always we always hear the quote, fall in love. Uh, we fall into whatever relationship, whether that's with a significant other, with your siblings, with a friend, with your parents, whoever. We fall in love because we want to be immersed in their presence, and we want to give and give and give, and we completely forget that we have to grow as individuals before we can grow within that partnership. And so I decided to completely eliminate that quote from my life and tattooed rise in love to remind myself that first I have to grow as an individual before I can find myself in any type of partnership where I can continuously grow with that partner.
Makes total sense. Yes, rise in love. I love that because we're all evolving. We are all evolving, and we want to make sure that we love ourselves. It sounds like a cliche saying, right? You're gonna love yourself before you love anybody else, but it is true, right? We do
It
have to
is.
love ourselves, and I'm not saying it in an arrogant way, but we have to love who we're becoming because who we're becoming is so much more. And you may have heard this on other podcasts, but if once people find out who they truly are, that's game over. Like this world, like I'm telling you, game over. We literally have control of our reality, and when we're evolving, I think we see that more and more and more. And it's so fascinating to me because I'm seeing so many people just rising up, rising up, rising up. So yes, rising up, and they're being so much more loving. They're serving because they love themselves, because that's why they're growing. If you love
Yes.
yourself, you're going to grow. And when you grow, you're going to shine. And when you shine, you're going to shine on everybody else. And it's like a domino effect. It's just that love vibration gets like out there.
Yeah.
I'm all about like love and shine and sparkles and whatever. If I had a little disco ball, I'd probably have one behind me. A little shiny disco ball. But this is my husband's office, so yeah, I don't think he'd like that too much. But oh my goodness. Anyways, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience or where they can follow you?
Yeah. So you guys can find me on Instagram. My handle is mindful presence. That's two L's in the full presence, Presence. It's the same on Pinterest. It's the same on Facebook, and I do have a website if you guys want to work with me. It's mindfulpresence.com, and you can find different ways to work with me there.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I will have that in the show notes for you. And it's been a pleasure, Celeste. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course. Thank you.
Of course.